Hey y'all, I'm a day trader now, so keeping a close eye on stock prices is very important for me. So I wrote a piece of software to help me do it. It's cloud-based, it's automated. I'm gonna give it to you in this video. You'll be able to set it up in about 20 minutes and have stock price notifications pushed to your phone. So let's get started. I called the software project Stonk Monitor, and the Git repo is linked in the description, and we'll go through how to set everything up. But this sets up cloud-based, automated, real-time stock price push notifications to your phone using AWS, Amazon Web Services, Interactive Brokers, and Pushover, which is the software service that pushes the notifications to your phone. So that brings me to our prerequisites. You need those 3 accounts. AWS is free to set up, and the EC2, if you do a micro instance, it'll be free to run for the first part. Just don't leave it running afterwards, or you might be charged fairly small amounts for the month. But you can look into that. Interactive Brokers, you will need some market data subscriptions, and you will need an IBKR Pro account because the Pro account is what links you up to the API. And I don't believe that there's a monthly fee for just being on the Pro account. It just bills you differently for trades, but you can look into all that. You need the IBKR Pro account, and you need certain market data subscriptions that I'll show you on the next screen. And then the Pushover account is free. Just go to pushover.net, and it's also linked in the Git repo. But you can do a free trial for that, and you'll be able to follow along with me. And it's really just a $5 lifetime fee for Pushover. So I'd just go ahead and sign up for it if you think you'll use this. Okay, these are my market data subscriptions. So I believe this one is like necessary to have any real-time streaming. Like they force you to have this one. And then I also added this futures bundle because I trade futures as well. So if you were just trading equities, you could probably get away with $4.50 a month. But I'm paying, as you can see down here, $14.50 a month for those 2 subscriptions for real-time streaming data. Okay, so now I'm going to explain how the price thresholds work. So essentially when you start the program, it just grabs the first price. Really, it grabs like the 3rd or 4th price because the first couple prices that Interactive Broker sends you are kind of bogus sometimes. So I just ignore the first few prices, but eventually it'll set a price that is essentially the price of the asset when you started the software engine. And when it moves 1% from that start price, plus 1% or minus 1%, it'll send you a push notification. And then if it moves another 2%, it'll send you another one. And then if it moves another 2%, it'll send you another one. Now, mind you, these numbers are completely configurable. So you could say, hey, I want to know only when it moves at least 5% from the start price. Or I want to completely micromanage this thing and I want to know every 0.1% when it moves. So you could say, so you can configure, how far it moves before your first price notification and then also the spacing between them. So just wanted to clear that up. That's kind of how the software works. It takes the start price from whenever you start the engine and it just measures deviations, percentage deviations from that start price. And that's for each symbol on your watch list. And these are what the push notifications will look like on your phone. So you receive it like a normal push notification. This is a list of a bunch of price notifications I got delivered on various stocks today. And the detail in each message tells you the start price that it's using, the last price. So you see it went up just a little bit, 0.1%. It'll tell you the threshold that it crossed. So it's very helpful for keeping an eye on stocks. Okay, here we are in the repo. There are the files, and here in the README are the instructions that you'll need to follow to set all this up. Those are the prerequisites there, and then so we'll start with step 1, which is launch an AWS EC2 instance. That's just a box in the cloud, so I'll switch over to my AWS console, and I'll click on EC2. And I'll click on instances and then launch instances. And I'm going to give it a name. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call mine Stonk Monitor. And it's got to be a Windows instance because the IB Gateway, it only works with Windows. So click on Windows. And then I like to make it a medium instance you can make it a micro if you want to save money. And then I'll create a new key pair, call it whatever you want. Stonk monitor key pair is what I'm going to call mine. That downloads a PIM file to your computer. And then you want to lock it down to just your IP. So that's for security reasons, so no one else can RDP into your box. And then launch the instance. And that'll take a few minutes, but you can immediately click into the instance. And then you can click the connect button there and go to the RDP page. This is what you're going to use to connect to your instance. So go ahead and copy that host name and go to your RDP client. I use Windows app. And so I'm going to set up a new connection. I'm going to put the host name in there, and then for the credentials, what you'll use is a username and password. The username is going to be administrator. That's just what AWS chooses. And then you have to generate the password. I'll give these credentials just a name for in the drop down, but you'll have to generate the password. So you click on that button, get password, and it's not ready yet because it takes a few minutes for it to be ready. So I'll stop the video for a moment and we'll come back once it's ready. Okay, it's been a few minutes, so I'm gonna click on get password, and now it works. So I can upload my key pair file that it downloaded, created and downloaded for me. That's the PIM file. And you click on decrypt password and it creates this password here. So I'll copy that, go back to Windows app, paste that into my connection configuration, add it, and then I can name my connection that I just created. So I'll just call it Stonk Monitor and click add, and then I can connect. I'll double click and connect to it. So this is connecting to that box that I just stood up, and it's still going to be loading because it hadn't had quite enough time, and this is the first time I'm logging into it, so Windows is going to prepare it for me. But for now, I'm going to go back to the instructions in the repo and see where we're at. So we just finished step 2, connect to the instance, and now next we're going to copy a bootstrap script into Notepad and run it on the box. And that's essentially, oops, I went into the wrong folder here. That if I grab all of this script, so I'll copy everything in this file, that's gonna set up the whole box for me. It's gonna install Python, it's gonna install, Chocolatey, and it's gonna pull down the repo for me, create a virtual environment, install all the packages in the virtual environment. So that bootstrap script does all of that, and basically gets the entire box set up for us. The only manual part that we'll have to do is to install IB Gateway. So I'm gonna pop into Notepad once it loads, because it's Windows. Paste, and then I'm gonna save it and just call it bootstrap.ps1. And I'll save it in the default location in Documents. Make sure to switch it to all files so it doesn't save it as .ps1.txt. And then I'm going to pop into PowerShell. And that'll take a second to load. Let's go back and see where we are here. So it says just run the script with that little command. So I just copied it there. And I'll CD into the Documents folder where I just saved that script, and then run that command I just copied. Whoops, I'm used to a Mac, so I keep hitting command here instead of control. Okay, and so that script will take several minutes to load, so go ahead and go grab a coffee. Okay, so the script is done. It's pulled down the repo and put us into the project folder, and it's created a virtual environment and put us into that virtual environment where it's installed all of the packages that it needs. So the next step is to add our pushover key and token to the .m file. And so we're going to open the project with code dot, and then we're going to just add our pushover key and our pushover token that will come from your account that you should already have. So you need a pushover account, obviously, to get that key. Go ahead and trust the authors, if you trust me. Okay, and then I'll just replace this with my keys. Those aren't my real keys, so don't get too excited. And that's that. Okay, we're on step number 5 now. So we're going to install and configure IB Gateway. So we need to search this in a browser. So I'll open up Windows Browser. Just not my favorite thing to do because it's going to ask me all this stuff and I'm going to have to uncheck boxes and do all this. But once I finally get to where I can search for something, I'll search for IB Gateway download and I'll click that first link. That first link was IB Gateway standalone. Let me show you. That's the link I clicked. Reject these cookies. Install IB Gateway, download. Okay, so it's downloading to my computer. I'll open the folder that it's downloading to and click the file that it downloaded. And click next. I'm just gonna take the defaults here. And it installs. It won't install that fast on yours. I skipped some time there. And click on Run IB Gateway to open it. And so it'll open. I'm going to close some of these windows. But when it opens, it'll take you to that login screen. So you're going to click IB API and paper trading. And you'll put in your paper trading account. Your real account login will not work here. You put in your paper trading username and your paper trading password. And then it'll connect and IB Gateway's going. So let's go back to our instructions and see how we're supposed to configure this thing. So we need to go to Configure Settings API Settings. Configure Settings API Settings. Okay. So up at the top, Configure Settings API Settings. And then I uncheck this. This is not a mandatory thing if you're not comfortable unchecking the read-only API, but you will get a warning message if you don't uncheck that, and I don't like it. The other thing is check that the socket port is 4002, that it matches whatever's in your env file. It can be whatever, but they need to match. Okay, and then the other thing we want to do is go to lock and exit. So let's go back to the instructions. So we've finished with this whole step. We've checked all that. Now configure settings, lock and exit, and we want to switch it to auto restart. And we can optionally change the time if we want. So you can see it's auto log off. We switch it to auto restart, and you can switch the time if you want. A little bit later, I'll show you how this code reconnects automatically when it restarts. Okay, apply that, close out of it. And now we're ready to run the application. So we should already have our PowerShell open to the project, and the VM should already be active. So, and if we want, we can change the log level to critical. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But we can, right now, we can run that command and that'll run the code. And I forgot that I put in my fake pushover API and key and token. So I need to fix this. Let me interject to show you how to change the log level. So you go to the env file in the project, and all you do is change that log level from the default debug to critical. And save it, and then rerun the code, and that's it. Okay, so I fixed it, and so this time I can run it python-m gen2.main, and this time it should work. It will connect, and when it connects, it'll send a little chime sound to your phone. Now you can see that I got an error there. And the error is that one of the contracts that I had in my watch list file, it couldn't find it. It's an unknown contract. It says that no security definition has been found. Unknown contract. Okay, so that happens when essentially the futures contract that I'm trying to look up expires. So since that contract is no longer in existence, since it's expired, IB is not able to find it. So let's fix that. So I'll go to the config folder and the watchlist.json. So this is where I define all my contracts. These are at the bottom of the features, and if you scroll up, the rest of them are stocks. Those are pretty easy, but the features have dates and stuff. And this is the one that threw the error, and even though it's still November now, those December contracts can expire in November. So let's just switch it to the January and see if we get an error. And I didn't see any red. Let's scroll up and make sure. Yep, no red. So it was able to find the contract. Let's see if we can find the contract in the list here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there it is. So it found it. It was able to find a contract ID for it, which means it was able to uniquely identify that specific futures contract. So it's setting the start prices for all the qualified contracts, and we're off to the races here. And I just Control-C out of it. You should also get a notification to your phone when it disconnects. So now let's do a different configuration where we're changing the default thresholds, first for the futures and then for stocks. So you can set the default global thresholds separately for futures and stocks, and then per symbol you can set things. For futures, it'll just be like MCL would be an example of a symbol that you would use. So if you're doing multiple futures contracts, you'd be setting the thresholds for all of the MCLs. And this is just an example of adding how you would add another override. If I was getting alerted on Tesla too often or not often enough, I can just put in an override in this file. So let's go back and run it with this new configuration. So I've essentially set it to where it's going to send me alerts every time the price moves even a little bit. So you can see it's setting some start prices there. It just sent me a notification to my phone of a price alert. There's another one. And it'll send a bunch of them because I'm telling it send it every 0.1% movement, which it's a pretty active day today in the stock market, so it's going to send a lot of them. So now I'd like to go to a different configuration where I'm changing the sounds, the notification sounds. So you can see all of them are the built-in sounds from Pushover here. If I go to my Pushover account, I've uploaded a bunch of different sounds, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But let's just grab this Lifecycle Connected sound, and and the disconnected sound, and we'll replace the sound that it is currently sending me when it connects to IB with my custom sound. And notice that I'm using this name, not this name. That's the description. This is the name, the one on the left. So I'll just replace those built-in sounds with my custom sounds in the configuration file. And now when I run it again, when it connects to IB and disconnects, it'll play my custom sounds off my phone. And so it just play my connect sound, and when I Control-C out of it, it'll play my disconnect sound. Okay, I wanted to go over a few more things. First of all, the thresholds. So what do all these numbers mean? So there's start percent, there's end percent, and spacing. The start percent of 1% means that when the stock price deviates by 1%, you'll get your first alert. That's your start alert. And the end percent of 50% means that you'll stop getting alerts once it's deviated from 50% from wherever it started. And you'll get, the spacing means that you'll get alerts every 2%. So your first alert will be at 1%, your second alert will be at 3%, your third alert will be at 5%, and so on. And similarly for stocks, so you have separate global thresholds for futures and stocks. Okay, and now the notification sounds. So you'll notice that each of these is an array of different sounds that it'll play. Well, we just discussed that there are multiple different thresholds. It's going to fire another alert every 2% if your spacing is 2%. So you'll get your first alert at 1%, second alert at 3%, and so on. So each of those sounds in the array, so the first one corresponds to your first alert, the second one corresponds to your second alert, the third one corresponds to your third alert, and then for your fourth, fifth, sixth alert, it keeps repeating the last sound in the list. It'll just keep doing that for as many alerts as you get after that. And these lists can be arbitrarily long, so I could add bike, or I could add any other sound that I choose to upload to Pushover. So you get in your Pushover account, you upload a custom sound, you name it, and then you put that name in that array, and it'll play that sound. And, like I said, they could be arbitrarily long. You can have as many of those as you want, and the last one keeps getting played over and over again once you reach, that number of alert. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is what all these numbers mean for the futures contract definitions. So that's done in the contract manager. And so if you pop in there and look at this function, load contract metadatas, you can see what they all mean. So there's most of them. So the first one is the symbol, the second one is the month of the contract, the third is the exchange, the fourth is the multiplier, and the fifth is the tick size. So if I go back, if I go back to the watch list, so that last one is the tick size, then there's multiplier, then there's the exchange, and then there's the month of the contract and the symbol. So that's what all those mean. Okay, I just wanted to show you how the code reconnects on its own. So I'm going to go into Configure, Settings, Lock and Exit, and I'm going to set the restart time for, it's 9:47 right now, so 9:48. And apply, and it says we got 24 seconds. So I got to get this code running really quick. And so it'll be running when IBKR restarts. And what's going to happen is it's going to disconnect it, obviously, but the code is going to continue trying to reconnect until IBKR comes back up. So let's see, any second now, IBKR, yep, it's restarting. You see the error there. Let me try to move. It's not letting me move the window because it's closing, but right here you can see reconnection attempt number 1, and then there's reconnection attempt number 2. And it'll just keep doing that once every 5 seconds. And it'll do that literally forever. So, this isn't the most robust code I've ever written. So, maybe I should have it stop trying after a while. But you can see there it reconnected. And it's back to setting the start prices and sending notifications. Now I'm going to show you how to upload your own custom sound into Pushover. So you just click Upload a Sound, you give it a name. I'll call this one Always Mac because it's a clip of Mac from Always Sunny. And I'll choose the file. It needs to be an MP3. Click Upload Sound. And then I can scroll down and I can see it right there. So now I can go to my notification sounds.json file and just put the name in there on whatever event I want it to play that sound for. So in this case, I've got it playing it for the connected event, but if I wanted it to play it whenever I disconnect, I could put it there instead. Or if I wanted it to play every time a futures contract passes the first threshold, I could put it here, and so on. So that's it. The code's not perfect, but it does work, and I am working on a more modular form of the code right now that's more decoupled with separate services and completely separate Git repos that communicate via an internal WebSocket API. So if you're interested in that, just keep watching this channel for more updates. But thanks for listening, and happy coding, happy stonking.